I'm gonna kick it off with our August GenTech Customer of the Month, and it's a University of North Texas Health and Science Center. We are with Dr. Laszlo Prokai, and for those of you who do not know Laszlo, he's kind of a big deal. So we're very lucky to have him. I'm gonna just quickly highlight his bio for our audience. So those of you who are familiar in biochemistry know about the Robert A. Welch Chair. And in 1998, they qualified for that. And Laszlo is actually the first Robert A. Welch Chair in biochemistry. He joined the organization in 2005. And he maintains active research program supported by the National Institute of Health. He also is getting private funding sources from pharmaceutical and chemical companies. Laszlo has been recognized both nationally and internationally for his work on discovery, bioorganic, and medicinal chemistry of the central nervous system agents on neuropeptides, proteomics, and mass spectrometry. So this is a very impressive. He has won numerous awards. He is frequently invited to speak at conferences and scientific meetings. He has several patents, along with a long list of papers and publications, and he serves on editorial boards of several scientific journals. So his current research, which we want to learn all about, is focusing on aging, neurodegenerative disease, and cancer. So, Laszlo, welcome, and thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. So that's a huge resume, and I just have to ask, so as a scientist, you're studying all this stuff. What is the most interesting? Where's your real passion?
Basically, my passion is to answer biological relevant questions, problems, doing research that is inspired by chemistry. Basically, how it can be interpreted and how it can be made useful. Mostly biomedical sciences that would benefit from these perspectives that and the unique views that I can present to the broader scientific audience.
That's a great answer. If you could just briefly talk about UNTHSC broadly, and then your specific institution within, what you're chairing and kind of the day-to-day for your specific department, please.
And just briefly, the University of North Texas Health Science Center is part of the University of North Texas system and was funded in over 50 years ago as the Texas College of Osteopathic Medicine. Now it has grown to 5 schools. One of them is the School of Biomedical Sciences, which is the driving force of research on our campus, and where we belong to the Department of Pharmacology and Neuroscience as the mass spectrometry and proteomics laboratory. When it comes to just the technical expertise that we can offer to the broader scientific community, not just locally at the institution and of course our area of Texas, but coast to coast. So we have collaborated, helped with our services, the Naval Research Laboratory in California, in China Lake, and very recently FRO Pharmaceuticals, that is headquartered on the East Coast in the Boston area.
Now, Laszlo, you sort of have 3 roles. You're a professor, you're a lab director, and you're also a researcher. Do you feel like you're spending a third, and a third of your life in these roles? Or are you like, I'm primarily a researcher and occasionally I step in as a lab director? Like, how do you see yourself?
It all comes in one person. So like basically I do not separate, I do not compartmentalize. everything has to be in balance. And yes, like I'm passionate about doing research, but also I'm equally passionate about the teaching our next generation of researchers, health professionals, and of course, I want to make a difference with certain kind of assistance services, if you want to call it like that, in our area and beyond, nationally and internationally.
That's awesome. So our audience is, very interested in, analytical instruments, right? So what are your workhorses? What are your instruments of choice on a day-to-day?
Well, whatever serves the purpose, whatever is going to be the best in our arsenal to use for that particular purpose. Basically, as an academician, like 3 decades ago, I started collecting all sorts of high-end analytical instruments. In the beginning, they may have been high-end, but without tender, loving care and expertise, those could not have served the purpose we intended to basically serve. That said, you have to roll with the punches and simply update your capabilities as everything has started evolving with mass spectrometry. When I started in the early 80s, mass spectrometry was kind of like a specialized technique, really not seen as the driving force we now have behind the bit of everything in biomedical and pharmaceutical research. Simply, I had to think about being a good steward of the resources that I have been provided with or ended up purchasing from grant funds for the purpose of research in question. But as far as mass spectrometry goes, nearly every other year there have been new developments, and keeping up with the Joneses is a hard job. Requires a lot of diplomacy as to convincing funding agencies and institutional leadership to provide support to really keep the infrastructure working for the purpose of research and development.
That makes a lot of sense. Because that's a huge issue with labs, right? I mean, especially in the university community, because you mentioned grant funding, and yes, you've got to keep up with the latest and greatest, but at the same time, brand new instruments are, very cost prohibitive. So that kind of leads me into my next question, which is you're an elite GenTech customer. We really love you. And I was curious if you remember, like, what first led you to work with GenTech?
My history with GenTech goes back 25 years. And my first purchase from you guys was in 2001. I mean, 25 years ago when I first heard about GenTech. And basically, it is a close-knit, it used to be a close-knit community, but we actually represented as mass spectrometrist in the United States. So I happen to know somebody that retired from one instrument company that was merged into another, and simply he was at the age of close to the age of retirement. And when we talked, that he revealed to me that he was going to help his friend that established a company, GenTech Scientific, with his sales experience. and simply I wished him luck. But that a few years later, when I got my first NIH funded project, the bigger project, I had a need to purchase an HPLC, a high performance liquid chromatography system. I started looking around, and simply to accommodate on the budget, I just considered that buying a brand new system, it would just not be cost effective. Therefore, I reached out and indeed found GenTech Scientific to supply me with the first system that was basically an HPLC system, serving the purpose very well to the project I received and conducted back then at the University of Florida before moving over here. But all mission critical instruments that I ended up collecting at the University of Florida transferred with me here to the UNT Health Science Center. They provided me funding, basically federal funded big instrumentation. So it was a close to $1 million package that I ended up receiving to buy instruments, including the state-of-the-art mass spectrometer. But as I said, these instruments do not last even physically that long, that would last forever. Actually, the instrument companies shifted the focus on developing certain kind of line of instrumentation that Fourier transform ion cyclotron resonance mass spectrometer, which is basically considered still the most advanced mass spectrometer of its kind, suddenly became a burden. And physically, it became incapacitated, so that I had to think about what's next. And obviously, on a shoestring budget, you have to raise interest and support from within the institution. And I had the discretionary funds as well, so I could match. Therefore, the best option that I found was to seek a replacement system, again from GenTech Scientific, which materialized that, if I count correctly, 5 years ago. So ever since we have started relying more and more, not only just to purchase our instruments, but also providing the service contracts for the instruments that we purchase.
And that leads me into another question, because you did hit on that we sell instruments, but we also do provide service. And we have a lot of pride in our technicians, and we try to get A+ people that are very smart and committed. So that being said, what's your absolute favorite thing about working with GenTech?
It's basically the budget that we can stay within. It's a big advantage. So, like, if you have to squeeze in purchasing and maintaining instruments with the precious grant money that you work hard for, and simply want to carry out the research that you proposed, usually the budget cuts by the federal agencies more or less are a given. Therefore, you have to simply be a good steward to the resources, which again brings us that we may not buy the most advanced, the most recent instrumentation available on the market, but at least we can assure that we remain competitive with our expertise and simply support that are going to be purchased through these maintenance and service contracts.
So I assume you would recommend GenTech to others?
Absolutely. If you have to work on tight budgets of these days, you cannot simply leave these options out of consideration.
So more broadly, what advice would you have, for somebody in a similar role? What would you tell them?
Well, brace yourself, first of all. It's not an easy job to do. You have to multitask. You have to be diplomatic, both by way of trying to receive support from within your organization and reach out to raise funds, write grants that would let you, as I said, keep up with the Joneses. This is a difficult task, but experience is key. So when you have solved many situations that requires all these skills, more or less you are going to be experienced enough to handle challenges with the proper disposition of how you are going to conduct business, although I do not like the word business when it comes to research and academia, because it's really a different kind of endeavor. By nature, it is unpredictable. There is no guaranteed success in research, and also that's another fact of life that somebody aspiring to be following my footsteps to deal with and more or less embrace as reality.
Very well said. Anything new on the horizon for you and THSC? Anything new coming? Anything you want to tell our audience about? Are you hiring? You guys got any new initiatives? Anything exciting on the horizon?
Well, it's Texas, so everything is bigger in Texas because the ambition is obviously big, and we have the proper support from state and local levels to still grow. I'm a little bit more laid back in terms of not going for new initiatives, since we have already established ourselves in our particular field, and that we are hoping for more funding to our purpose, i.e. research, that would benefit not only our institution, but as we say, the broader scientific community as well. It's inevitable that you could always use more funding to your research and activities.
Of course. Okay, so pivoting a little bit, we've had some interaction with your coworker, Dr. Caitlin Prokai. Can you tell us a little bit about this coworker of yours?
Coworker? No, she's my partner, not coworker, partner. So we combined forces, not only real life, like basically we met in college, and simply fell in love, got married, and simply doing things together ever since, and realized that instead of simply going in the different direction, why not join forces and become a team so that we can both benefit from our synergistic experience and different viewpoints. Therefore, I consider that it is a successful relationship regarding this like activity as well. Not only just that, like having become first-time grandparents just 10 days ago.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you very
Did
much.
you get a granddaughter or a grandson?
Grandson.
And is his name Laszlo Jr.? What is his name?
No, Jack.
Jack.
Jack, yes. We are eager to have time to visit them.
Well, congratulations
Thank you
to both of you. That's great. Oh, so now we're going to go into the toughest part of the interview, Laszlo. This is our lightning round.
All right.
So this is where I just say something and you just answer. This is where we get to know the real Laszlo. Chocolate or vanilla?
Vanilla.
Window or aisle?
Aisle.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Book or a movie?
Movie.
Do you want to be in the country or do you want to be in a big city?
In between. The city life, but nevertheless, I don't want to commit myself to a concrete jungle.
Laszlo, are you a big picture guy? Or are you a very detail orientated person?
Depends. I'm really good with details. I really have eyes on discovering really small details that could be important, but also I always look for like fitting that particular little detail into a big picture.
Do you want to go camping or do you want to spend a night at the Ritz?
Probably Ritz.
Are you an early riser or are you a night owl?
Definitely a night owl. I cannot function early in the morning.
So while you're trying to stay awake or wake up, are you drinking coffee or are you drinking tea?
None. Like I don't drink anything to pick me up.
All right, and this is our last question in the lightning round. So you and I were talking before. We are both Bela Fleck fans. So my question for you, Laszlo, what is your favorite bluegrass instrument?
Well, it has to be the banjo.
That concludes our interview. As a winner of this elite award, we will be sending you a GenTech Customer of the Month plaque, handmade by a local artist. So I know there's limited real estate there on those walls, Laszlo, but if you feel so inclined, you ought to hang it up. We would love it, or maybe stick it in the lab so everyone can see how much we love you.
I'm gonna stick it in the lab next to the instrument that you guys provided.
Perfect. That would be awesome. So look for that, and just can't thank you enough for being a wonderful customer, and thank you very much for your business.
It's my pleasure.